All right. Hello, everybody. We're going to get started. I'm so happy to see all of you here. Thanks so much for joining. I know we have lots and lots of people registered and attending today. So we are going to, I'm going to talk just a little bit about CSH and what we do, but the goal here is to make sure that you all have an intro to the Supportive Housing Institute that we will offer this year, and get some details around the application and the process and the timeline, as well as have plenty of time to answer your questions. So know that we'll probably work through the presentation and then look to answer any questions afterwards. But please feel free to put them in the chat and introduce yourselves as well in the chat. It's so good to see everyone. All right, well, I'm going to kick us off. We can go to the next slide. You are here. You are all here because you are interested and might know varying degrees about the Supportive Housing Institute in Virginia. I want to just stop before even talking about CSH and ourselves, give a big shout out to our sponsors and partners on this project. This is our third year delivering a Supportive Housing Institute in Virginia, and we are just really lucky. I feel so grateful to have the support and partnership from Virginia Housing, the DBHDS, the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, and the Department of Housing and Community Development is kind of our key state partners that we work with on delivering this institute and supporting our efforts to increase quality supportive housing in Virginia. It's with their leadership and their support that we can really impact the supportive housing need that we see across the state. And then big, huge shout out to HAND, the Housing Association for Nonprofit Developers, and the Virginia Housing Alliance, that are playing a critical role for us in terms of helping us handle logistics and outreach and contribute to the structure and the delivery of the Institute. We are so grateful that we have such strong partners to work with. And I just going to put it in, if you are not members of these two groups, I suggest you join. The benefits, CSH ourselves, we are members of both organizations and really value what they bring to the table and the work they do tirelessly every year, whether that's advocacy, education, training, and bringing us all in the field together to learn and to rally around the things that we need to do our work better and the needs of the people we serve. Go to the next slide. And I should say that we do have two folks from HAND, and if you're welcome to show your faces if you'd like. Tiana Overton and Susan Ortiz is on the line. If you will hear from them more as you participate in the Institute and as you become members of HAND as well, I would suggest. But first, let's talk about CSH. So my name is Jill or Jillian Fox. I go by both. Most people in Virginia say Jill at some point, and that's totally fine. I really use both. I serve as our director here for CSH and our Mid-Atlantic team. Our Mid-Atlantic team covers Delaware, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. We are CSH, if you haven't heard of us before, and please feel free to learn more at our website, www.csh.org. We are a national nonprofit. CSH stands for Corporation for Supportive Housing. We work across the country to advance supportive housing solutions. We're structured in a variety of different ways. We have national teams that kind of lead population-specific efforts or policy work, or specific types of training and technical assistance efforts. And then we have geographically based teams, and that's what our Mid-Atlantic team is. So we're not going to have everyone introduce themselves today, but want to make sure you know Pamela Agava. These are the folks you would be seeing and hopefully, whether you participate in the Institute or not, will get to know us better. And we hope to get to know you all better as well. So Pam Agava, she's our associate director, has been here about 3 years, and she is based out of DC. We all work from home from places in the region. So Pam is our associate director, been here 3 years, and plays a critical role in our content development and leading our team on our equity work. We have Shiri Yadlin, Senior Program Manager. She's also based out of DC, comes to us from some policy work with faith-based organizations and affordable housing. And prior to that has direct service as part of an assertive community treatment team. We have Rashonda Lanier Jackson. She is based here in Richmond with me. We both work from home in the Richmond area. Rashonda came to us last year, July, I think, or the end of June, from work at a planning district commission in the area with prior work in state government, as well as programs focused in education on youth and families. So really, you will see all 3 of those folks a lot as part of our training and delivery of the Institute. But last but not least, and I'll be turning the whole slideshow over to Liam in just a few minutes, but Liam Hudson, he is our project manager for our Institute here in Virginia, has led the way in making sure that we provide a high quality experience and support the teams that participate in our Institute. Liam came to us in 2022 from DHCD, from the Virginia state government. Prior, he has a lot of various experience working in homeless systems and rural communities, as well as direct service and supportive housing programs in Michigan and DC. So that is our team, and we are excited to get to know you better. Go to the next slide, Tiana. So I mentioned a little bit about how CSH is structured, but what we do is we work completely on advancing supportive housing solutions across the country. We know that supportive housing improves lives of people. We know that it maximizes public resources when delivered well, because it ends that costly cycle of crisis and institutionalization that basically is we're paying more for worse outcomes, right? So we know supportive housing has an impact on public resources and optimizes those. And as it's delivered in a high quality way, and as our communities have the amount of supportive housing necessary to serve the populations, we can build strong and healthy communities. We've seen that and across communities in this country. We do it in a variety of ways. We do not provide direct service for supportive housing or in supportive housing. We do training and technical assistance. We have an online training center that provides a variety of training on topics for the supportive housing field. And we also do a lot of policy work at the local and state and federal level. And then we also are a lender. So we're a community development financial institution that provides pre-development acquisition loans and financial products to organizations developing supportive housing. Next slide. I see your question, Lou, and I think we're going to get to that in a little more detail later, but our definition of supportive housing, we use the term supportive housing. I think a lot of folks in Virginia use permanent supportive housing. We use those interchangeably. We're talking about non-time limited assistance. So long-term, lease-based housing, independent, integrated in the community, with the robust and voluntary services and supports. And we can get in, provide much more detail and information on that. And I would also direct you to our website for even more details on our definition and what supportive housing is. We are at CSH, and especially our team, we are really structured to work within our values. And we take our values seriously in terms of how we do our work, how we engage with our partners and the communities we work with, and how we center the voice of people that we are trying to impact through our housing and services systems. This includes courageous interdependence. So we embrace our individuality and the perspectives that all of us bring to the work, and acknowledge that that is really what makes our collective effort stronger as we all come with ourselves to this work and understand how those are important to building our programs and how we engage with partners. We engage in principled risk-taking, which is thoughtfully examining our work and our relationships and how we center community-led system change. We value transparency to ourselves, but also our partners in this work. And we work towards pursuing the joy and rest that we know sustains us in this arduous and kind of long game, we call it, but necessary work. System transformation doesn't happen overnight, and so we understand that being authentic about that, but also finding the joy and rest to continue allowing us to do this work is fundamental to what we want to see. Across all our work, we center racial and justice and equity. We acknowledge that racism is the key driver to the need for supportive housing in this country. And so we work to center that and anti-racism in our work so that we're making sure we're addressing those disparities and dismantling the systems and structures that continue to produce the need for supportive housing in this country. So with that, I am very excited to introduce you and hand the slide deck over to Mr. Liam Hudson to lead us through more details on the Institute. Thanks.
Thank you, Jill. And hello, everybody. I'm excited you all are here. It's good to see some familiar names. Great to see some new names as well. As Jill said, for the next little bit, I'll be talking to you all about how we view supportive housing and the principles and values we have around that, what the Institute looks like, and we'll get into a little bit about what our timeline is going to look like for the Institute, and then we'll round it out today with a little slight preview of the application and then a Q&A session at the end. So we can head to the next slide, please. So Jill spoke a little bit about our definition of supportive housing, but basically what we look at is we look at individuals who are cycling through multiple systems of care most of the time and are also experiencing long-term homelessness. And so we see folks who are heavily involved in the criminal justice and legal system. We see folks who have significant and acute behavioral and healthcare needs. We see folks cycling kind of out of the child welfare and foster system into patterns of homelessness. And then again, our population in the US is rapidly aging. Seniors are definitely more and more vulnerable and have often have higher barriers to having their needs met or receiving the support they need to live stably. And so we currently estimate the national supportive housing needs, CSH does, at 1.1 million. And something I forgot to mention, folks, I'm so sorry. I just did want to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded and that we will be sharing the recording. So sorry about forgetting to mention that, but wanted to throw that in there real quick. And we can head to the next slide, please, Tian. So what is supportive housing? We define supportive housing as deeply affordable housing. So we're talking about 0 to 30% AMI here, area median income. I know some folks may have seen affordable defined as 60 to 80, but for the purposes of how we define supportive housing, we're looking at that extremely low income, often zero income population. This comes with voluntary, tenant-centered wraparound supportive services, and hopefully with the goal of ending long-term homelessness. And we also want to make sure that we're providing residents the platform to thrive. So this looks like stable housing with, as Jill mentioned, no timeline, or it's available to folks as they need it. The voluntary services are built around the person's individual needs and their individual goals. They're informed by that person. And so the goal is to ultimately result in long-term housing stability. Why this is important in Virginia. So the first thing I want to call out is our point in time count. So in 2022, the number of folks who were identified as experiencing street homelessness on the night of the point in time count, it was 685. But in 2023, that number jumped right up to 1,334. So, a significant increase in the number of folks who were found to be experiencing homelessness. Now, again, this is the point in time count, so it's a snapshot of one night. We recognize that it's not fully inclusive, but does provide a pretty good oversight for the need for supportive housing. Sorry, I'm just monitoring the chat, making sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, thanks, Jill. Putting that data in the chat. Also want to shout out to some data provided by the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services that estimates that a total of 7,220 units are needed across the state to address the acute needs of folks living with serious mental illnesses, and again, folks who are cycling through the systems, and that it's creating an incredible burden on the system. And so ultimately, supportive housing, we have found, breaks the cycle of homelessness. It ends crises amongst individuals at extremely low income levels, and also helps to get some of their more complex medical and behavioral health needs addressed in a way that is, again, tailored to them and supportive for their goals, and ultimately to help them achieve stability. Next slide, please. So why supportive housing? We know a little bit about what the need looks like in Virginia right now. But why is it important? Well, it's a key component of the housing continuum, and radically improves advancing racial and housing justice. It helps folks gain a level of stability in ways that other housing opportunities do not. It also works. We have a lot of evidence to demonstrate the positive outcomes it has in communities and for individuals. We also, we understand that supportive housing works because of cross-sector partnerships. And so it helps build relationships in communities across different sectors. It also helps support folks by getting them connected with multiple sectors in one kind of primary location. And it ultimately reduces the burden on any individual system to meet folks' needs, right? And so getting folks in supportive housing has been demonstrated to be a key in their housing stability and helping them maintain that stability. Next slide, please. All right. So now that we know a little bit more about supportive housing, what it looks like in Virginia and why it's important, let's get a little bit deeper into the Institute and how we support our supportive housing goals, and how the Institute can help you all support the supportive housing need in Virginia. Next slide, please. So what is the Supportive Housing Institute? First and foremost, it's a CSH signature approach to seeding a quality pipeline of supportive housing. We do this through intensive capacity building, providing lots of hands-on training and technical assistance. And all of this is based in evidence, best practice and evidence-based quality standards. So ultimately what we want to do with the Institute is shorten the length of time that it takes you all to find funding for your projects, We also want to help you navigate the complex tools. We understand that some folks may be newer to the development world, and the tools can sometimes be really confusing. So the Institute helps you kind of create a pathway to obtaining those tools and understanding those resources a little bit better. And then for developers and property managers and folks, service providers and persons with lived experience, it levels the platform for folks to have an equal voice and say in the project. And it really helps promote that these projects are informed by the community and for the community. Next slide, please. So our key objectives throughout the Institute are to understand the core concepts of supportive housing. So this looks like housing first, maintaining completely voluntary services, implementing harm reduction strategies, and making sure our policies and practices are centered towards eviction prevention, and that we're screening folks in when we're doing those intakes and when we're looking for tenants to fill our units. We also want to make sure that you guys are able to identify the roles and responsibilities of all the key partners in this project. You know, oftentimes supportive housing developments take a lot of legwork and a lot of different people making a lot of different decisions, and that can get kind of messy, right? So our goal is to really help you all understand the roles and be able to communicate those roles. You'll see later, put those roles in writing so that they're agreed upon by everyone, and have a really clear vision of what it looks like moving forward. The other thing we do throughout the Institute, or we expect and hope, is that you all create plans that you can use moving forward as you're pitching these projects to funders, as you're developing your timelines and thinking about how you're going to do your outreach. This includes things like your tenant selection plans, your supportive services plans, any eviction prevention, property management, and then tenant involvement. We also, the Institute helps you understand financing. We get really specific about this financing available in the state of Virginia, what that could look like for multiple projects. We try to be really intentional about having key funders involved and putting the projects in front of the key funders and having input from them up front so that you all have a better sense of navigating the funding process and what financing is going to look like as you move forward and at each stage. Excuse me. Pollen is getting me. I opened my window earlier. Excuse me. And then the last thing that we hope is that, you know, ultimately you all set standards and set design criteria and site selection for your project so that when you graduate the Institute, you have a really clear vision and a really clear path for moving forward. Just gonna pause and check the chat really quickly. Okay. All right. We can head to the next slide, please. All right, so for the Institute, our priority focus populations are folks experiencing long-term homelessness and again, institutionalization due to historical and systemic exclusion. And also this includes persons with complex health challenges, including those with mental health or behavioral health diagnoses. And so we wanted to leave it. We understand that your communities and the needs of your communities are diverse and the needs of folks experiencing homelessness in your communities are diverse. And so we wanted to recognize as many folks as we could, but also prioritize those who are most systemically targeted or who may otherwise fall through the gaps and not be able to receive the support they need as easily. And so hopefully, you know, as you go through the Institute, you will develop ways of engaging this priority focus population and understanding their needs to really inform your project. Next slide, please. All right, so the Institute is structured in a way that we really value team commitments. So this year for the Institute, we are accepting 5 teams. Of those 5 teams, teams can have up to 6 members. We do need folks to identify a team leader. So this person is going to be our point person for all communication. They're also going to be responsible for making sure the team turns in their homework and is attending the sessions. They're going to have to be the primary liaison with their technical assistance provider. And so really make sure that they're on top of any questions that come from different partners and can relay information. So the team leader is a really, really, really important role. We also ask that every team has a plan to incorporate feedback from members of the priority population in their project. You will find that that is something that we highly value, and you'll see several times throughout the Institute as opportunities to seek feedback, or us encouraging you all to seek feedback on certain throughout various parts of your project. And then we ask that all team members must attend all sessions. I understand the Institute, you'll see a little bit later. It's a lift, I'm not going to lie to you. It's a very intensive course. We deliver a lot of great material, but it is a time commitment. And so just throwing out there that as you guys are thinking about this through your teams and through the projects that or the partners you want to bring into this, thinking about folks' capacity, their ability to meaningfully engage with the team and show up to the sessions. So eligible projects include projects, you can have 100% supportive housing, but at least a portion. The LIHTC recommendation now is 10%, though you don't have to be planning to go for LIHTC funds or be a LIHTC project to attend the Institute, but just throwing that out there, is 10% targeted for supportive housing. We also see, I'm sorry, the ASH pool is currently 15, I lied. And then DBHDS is 25.
I was just saying the leasing preference is 10, and that ASH pool, which for tax credit folks know, the special pool of tax credits is 15% to be able to compete there. So just highlighting that.
Yeah, thank you. The other key thing is the project must be located in Virginia. We're very, very excited that we get to have a statewide institute this year. We had great institutes in Nova, and then last year in Nova and Hampton Roads, but excited to see some folks in the more rural parts, or maybe other parts of Virginia that may be interested in supportive housing, but haven't had an avenue before now. Also, all the projects must include permanent with no time limit affordable housing for extremely low income. Again, that's 0 to 30 AMI. The tenants must hold leases, and the leases can't have anything beyond what that of any other tenant would have. And so the lease has to be the standard lease. It has to, apply to the priority population as it would anyone else. You also can't have services as a condition of tenancy. So it can't be part of their lease or part of their service agreement that they have to be involved in services. All services must be voluntary. We do ask that you adhere to the Housing First model. This includes eviction prevention and harm reduction strategies. If you're not super familiar with those, I wouldn't let that deter you. We will get into that throughout the Institute, especially, for those of you who are maybe earlier on in your project concept and have more wiggle room. Part of our strategy is to help you implement those. We also want to make sure that comprehensive services are accessible and that they are in an area that are designed around the tenant, around where they live, around what they need, and that they can maximize tenant self-sufficiency. And then the last thing that your project needs to be eligible is that your tenant screening policies and practices must be low barrier. And again, you want to make sure that we're screening folks into housing and not restricting housing for folks. So we want to appeal to the folks who are more involved with the criminal and legal system, right? We want to involve folks who are frequenting hospitals and otherwise have huge barriers to getting their needs. So making sure that none of our leases or any of our screening practices turn those folks away. Next slide, please. So, we ask a lot of you throughout the Institute, but we also hope to give you a lot back. And so some of the things that we deliver throughout the Institute are we help you with, again, your project plans. We also help you get those partnership memorandums of understanding and agreements in place so that when you're moving forward, when you get to lease up, you know exactly who does what, when, and where. We help you meet your project goals, and we provide assistance throughout the Institute, and you know, even a little bit beyond in terms of making sure that you all have the support you need to really get this in front of the folks that need to see it, and that your community is supportive. We help you draft property management and tenant involvement plans. We also help with capital, operating, and services budget development. And then again, we help develop a community, or throughout the Institute, we will help with you developing a community support plan. So again, I know I said it was a big ask, and it is, but we also provide a lot of things and a lot of really valuable things. And it really, shortens the length of time that we see projects would otherwise spend on developing these things, because oftentimes they're developed at various stages throughout the project. Multiple people are working on them. It can kind of get lost in the cracks, right? With the Institute, it's all in one place. You're developing everything collaboratively. You have the guidance from your technical assistance provider and the field experts. And so it really does shorten the overall burden on the project. Next slide, please. All right, so now that I've kind of walked you through a little bit of the basics of the Institute, I just wanted to take a second and highlight some of our recent graduates from our 2023 round. So again, this was a multi-regional round. We focused on the Hampton Roads region, as well as the Northern Virginia region. And so we can go to the next slide, please. So first up, we have JCOC and their 3H housing. I know many of you probably know Todd Walker. He is very well known in the community and has really been was a really great advocate throughout the Institute. They are developing a 38 completely 100% PSH unit. They're doing project-based vouchers. All utilities and Wi-Fi are included, on-site but not in-unit laundry facilities. They're doing a community dining hall and community room. They currently operate a food bank, so they're going to tie that into the services provided. And they just overall have a really comprehensive plan for being able to provide a lot of services on site, including a Sentara-based person, a Sentara healthcare person based there once a week, and then on-site telehealth available 7 days a week. So definitely a shout out to them. They brought in some really cool concepts throughout the Institute. And you know, we're really thoughtful in the planning and the engagement of the folks that they work with to understand what folks needed in their community. Next slide, please. Next up, we have Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing with Crystal House 6, another well-known name in the game. They are doing 80 units of senior housing, and they are doing the 10% unit of 10% mix of PSH units. They have community room with divisible space so that folks can have private meeting spaces, but also folks can engage. They said this is going to include things like movie nights or monthly dinners for everyone. They're going to have an on-site resident services office that includes spaces for the county staff to come in and provide the supportive services. They're going to have a wellness room, a fitness center, and an outdoor patio space with barbecue. And what's not listed is under the building, they have a 2-story garage, which includes bike parking and all kinds of things. So they were also very intentional about their space and maximizing the resources and the use of their building. And we can go to the next slide, please. Oh, interesting. I didn't know there was an animation there. So next up, we have The Haven by Moore Inc. And so The Haven was a little bit different of a project than we'd seen before the Institute. And really, you know, I think for me personally, I think really broadened my sense of what this work could look like. They're doing 53 units, 22 of which are permanent supportive housing units for folks with serious mental illness. 20 of those units are for transitional age youth and families. And then 11 of the units are for 60% AMI and under. So a pretty unique mix. It's a very big space. The space they're looking at is more of an industrial space that they're planning to rehab. So the other two were new development. This one is a rehab. They're going to do tons of community spaces, including gardens. They're going to try to be as green as possible. They're looking into solar and rain storage containers and want to be carbon neutral. And they also were really intentional about making sure they chose a site that was close to schools, employment, and medical care. And so I displayed these three because, you know, I feel like they show, they were great examples of how broad the work of the Institute could be and what your projects could look like. And so even though, you know, the Institute has, you know, we have very prescriptive sessions and the information that we're giving out has been, you know, painstakingly put together based on best practice for years and years and years, your project still has lots of flexibility. It should be tailored to you all and your needs and the needs of your focus population. And so, yeah, I thought these just highlighted some of the ways, different ways that that could be done. Next slide, please. So our commitment to you throughout the Institute, we promise to help you all promote collaborative engagement. This includes collaborating with us, collaborating with our state partners, collaborating with yourselves. We really want to promote an equal playing field so that everyone has voice and can voice their concerns and opinions and feels heard. We also want to help you and use those skills to provide you with tools and resources that help you meet your goals. And so we want to see your project succeed just as much as you do. And so we have extensive resources, lots of tools. You have access to all kinds of cool gadgets and gizmos throughout the Institute that will provide you to help you kind of narrow your goals down and ultimately achieve them. We're also going to use several different approaches to keep you engaged. So we'll see a little bit later, but this is a hybrid model. We'll have some in-person sessions. We'll have some virtual sessions. You have homework and different ways like that to engage. And then we also have technical assistance that'll be provided to each team one-on-one. And so we're going to keep you engaged throughout the Institute to make sure that we're fully supporting this project. And then we want to help you ultimately apply what you learn. You know, it's great that you all are interested, but we want to make sure that that's practical and that you understand what that looks like in real time. And so getting you there and making sure that your supportive housing project meets your goals, meets a fidelity model is ultimately the key. Next slide, please. So now that you know a little bit of what we promise to do, here's some of what we expect from you all. We expect individual, collective, and organizational commitment to furthering equity and illuminating barriers caused by racism in systems and programs. So that was a lot of words, but ultimately, you know, we want to see that you all are committed to reducing the barriers in your community with this project, and that you all are aware of the partners and the strategies that are needed to reduce those barriers. It's also our expectation that you have a meaningful inclusion of a person with the lived experience of homelessness. We'll get a little bit into what meaningful inclusion, how we're defining it in just a second. We ask that everyone who joins the Institute takes risks. You know, we're all coming from different perspectives. We're all coming from different backgrounds, and that's great. That's what makes the Institute so cool, is that you're hearing so many different perspectives and learning so much knowledge in such a condensed space that it really is we've seen it be a very powerful tool for folks' growth in their projects. And so we ask that to do that you sit with your discomfort sometimes, that you challenge the status quo, and that you really come to it with an open mind and are receptive to new ways of thinking. And then we ask that you ensure equal participation from all organizations and individuals on the team. So, you know, what we don't want to see is a team come in with 6 folks and only one person offers their opinion and feedback for everything, that really is not helpful in the Institute. We find that projects are most successful when they're well informed. And so we want to promote that, again, equal participation. Everyone on the team has an equal voice. Next slide, please. So when we say meaningful inclusion, we mean at a minimum that you're soliciting persons in a transparent and informative way. So this looks like when you are asking folks to be a part of your Institute team, that you're considering their capacity and their background, that we're not just kind of tokenizing someone and asking them to be a part of the team for the sake of having someone on the team, and that we're being upfront in what our expectations of their participation are, any sort of payment that we're going to offer them, and setting up that payment structure, making sure that they are aware of the Institute structure and have the ability to join virtual sessions and travel to the in-person sessions. We want to make sure that team meetings, so this includes the Institute sessions, but also when you do your one-on-one TA, that they're set up in a way that's most approachable or most accessible for all folks. And so if you know that a member on your team can't meet on Mondays from 3 to 5, don't schedule your meeting at 4, right? And so make sure you're including everyone, make sure you're talking to folks and saying like, hey, do you have the capacity? Do you have internet? Do you have a computer? What support do you need to be able to participate in this? And then make a plan for providing that up front, or kind of mitigating that in another way. And then we also want to make sure that we're developing collaborative agreements that outline the expectations, again, the responsibilities, and also the resources that are going to be provided by and to all team members. We find that having these things in writing that are collaborative, that everyone agrees to, really helps hold folks accountable, and also gives folks something tangible to refer back to if ever they don't understand the rules or they don't remember the terms of the agreement. They have something they can refer to. So really, really valuable that you're developing those collaborative agreements. And now, something that I'm excited to offer is that each team is eligible for a stipend for up to $7,000 per team. This stipend can be used for travel reimbursement, or for travel, excuse me, and then also for paying the person with lived experience. We do ask that you meaningfully include a person with lived experience to be able to come in for the stipend. But again, up to $7,000 for teams to offset some of the costs of travel and maybe onboarding folks that they otherwise hadn't been prepared to. Any questions before I kind of hop forward, kind of pause real quick?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
When you say lived experience, are you talking about that piece that you mentioned about engaging people from the priority population?
I do think if you could include a member of the priority population, it would be valuable. But our definition, or what we're defining as lived experience in this instance, is someone who has the experience of homelessness. Was that helpful?
So you mean someone can be on the team that's on the team, they're working with providing or trying to help provide supportive housing, but they've experienced homelessness. They could be a de facto member of the team. Is that right?
Well, not so much someone who is already employed by the organization. Certainly they're welcome, but for this instance, it would be a member of the community that was intentionally sought as a team consultant to come in and provide that expertise.
Yeah.
Thank you. That helps a lot.
Yeah, and I think I just to add a little bit, like thinking about, how that experience can really help shape and a project, and you might have seen me put something in the chat. I really think this is critical to any kind of risk mitigation strategy. There's a lot of risks with housing development, and I think that when you don't design and build and plan a project really rooted into the market you are trying to serve, the tenant population, that you run the risk of making decisions that won't pan out well in the end and lead to leasing challenges or other operational challenges down the road. That's really, really critical. And so I would encourage when, when we're thinking about lived experience and pulling that into this project, that you really think about the priority population you're serving and looking at people that fit that bill. So if you have a youth project, you might want a person that either has experienced homelessness and institutionalization as a youth. I would suggest even is currently a youth. So the closest to the time and experience of current experience is, I think, the most helpful in making sure that the expertise provided really contributes to meeting the needs, the current needs in the community. So extra stuff.
Thank you, Jill. Any other questions before we hop on? All right, next slide, please. So again, just a key aspect of setting the stage for the Institute. Again, a lot of the information that you're going to learn is new. That's okay. We don't want you to feel behind. This is a learning, intensive learning experience. And so we hope that you intensely learn. And then, some of the information you hear might be a little uncomfortable. We do ask that you sit with your discomfort, approach it with curiosity. We hope to help you navigate through some of that and have some of those challenging conversations. And then we ask that you recognize that everyone is showing up to the space with a unique experience, with unique passions, with unique struggles, and unique needs. And so understanding your why and why you're in the space, but also understanding the impact of your presence in that space, whether it be title or certain privileges that you hold or don't hold. What is the impact of your voice and presence, and just being aware of that and how we show up to our spaces. Next slide, please. So the current timeline for the Institute, and I should add a little asterisk that says subject to change, but hopefully not. We're hoping to, once we get the application launched, we'll talk more about that in a couple of slides. We're hoping to notify all applicants by May 31st. We're going to have a virtual orientation in late June that's currently scheduled for June 27th. That'll be followed by our in-person kickoff. So we'll get into that in a little bit, but that's going to be the first time we all meet in person. It'll be a multi-day experience, and that's going to be July 8th through 10th. We'll then hop back to virtual sessions for the next couple of sessions before we go back to in-person in late August for our in-person budget sessions, where we will be really intentional about helping you all connect with funders. You'll hear from some of the key funders in the state about their priorities and funding availability. After that session, we'll come back for our last few virtual sessions. We'll hold one final virtual session that's going to be our finale prep session. And then in October, we will have our in-person finale. It's going to fall right in between the Housing Credit Conference and the Housing Virginia's Most Vulnerable Conference. Thank you to VHA for their partnership there. And this is ultimately your opportunity to put these projects in front of major funders and decision makers. We invite local and state government officials, our state partners at DBHDS and DHCD, Virginia Housing as well. And so a lot of key folks will be present. This is an opportunity, a high visibility opportunity for your projects to get in front of some folks who may have the decision-making power later on. Next slide, please. So I broke it down a little bit for you, but the structure, our session structure is Again, we're going to have that virtual orientation. This is going to go over basics of the Institute. We'll get deeper into level setting. We'll walk you through the tools and the resources that are going to be made available to you throughout the Institute. At that in-person kickoff, we're going to focus really heavily on partnerships, roles, team building, make sure that that aspect of your project is super solid before we get into any design or technical aspects. We'll work on project concept, and then we're pending site visit. And also at that session, we'll get a little bit more into supportive housing 101 and a brief overview of coordinated access. The next little bit of our virtual sessions are going to be our trauma-informed design sessions. We'll also have a session on property management and then services planning. We'll go back to our in-person budget sessions. Again, this is when we're going to have the state partners and funders available to talk to you all about their resources. We'll get into supportive housing budgets, what services budgets look like versus what development budgets should look like. We'll also talk about your operational and your capital budgets and get deeper into those and help you build those out. After our budget sessions, we will focus on our property management and service coordination. So the next couple of virtual sessions, I like to call them the braiding sessions, because it takes everything we've said so far and it helps you, braids it all together and tells you, helps you apply those strategies, right? So now you know what your budget should look like, you know what your rules are, you have a very good project concept that you feel confident about. How do we make it super strong? How do we focus on fair housing and making sure that we're screening tenants in? We want to walk you through quality standards. And then we'll also help you all with some finale practice. We'll review your presentations, give you an opportunity to present to each other before you present to the funding panel and offer any feedback there. Something I do want to mention, speaking of quality standards, is that all the folks who participate and graduate from the Institute are eligible to come in and seek a CSH quality standard, housing standard certification. This would otherwise be a $1,500 certification that's made available for free as part of participating in the Institute. The certification is currently recognized by Virginia Housing in meeting the leasing requirements or the services requirements. And so super valuable piece there. Again, not a requirement of the Institute, but it is something that you are eligible for as you participate. And then we'll round it out with our in-person finale, again, which is in front of tons of state and local key partners. I'm gonna check the chat. I see a couple of. Is there there is no cost. Sorry, Jill.
No, good. No, I was gonna go up to Charles, but you answer Lou and then we can go up to Charles.
So the geographical areas of the projects really depend on you all and where your needs are and where your development partners are working and building projects. And so we hope that we will see a wide range of geolocations throughout the Institute and that we can really hit all areas of the state with this Institute. But yeah, the location is definitely determined by you all and your partnerships and just the availability of progress in your area. And then Charles, yes, we do ask that all team members are present for every session. We understand that, things happen and folks might have to miss one here or there. We just ask that you keep us informed so that we can keep them up to date. But the key or the hope is that everyone can attend all sessions. How are the teams formed? Great question. So the teams are formed. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Could I just emphasize something? And I feel like I have to jumping into that, but so we've gotten this feedback before where there's a session that's on services, right? And the developer and property manager on the team are like, well, we don't need to go to that because it's focused on services. So I want to dispel that. It's really important that all the roles receive information about each other's roles. It leads to better understanding and I think connection and empathy and sympathy to know what each role, a little more about the best practices that are in those roles. So I just want to make that clear. There are sessions that are focused on specific topics that may not seem relevant for you, but we ask that we have exercises that the whole team completes related to those. And so that's why we want all roles present in all sessions. Sorry. Thanks, Liam.
Yeah, no, thank you. And then I saw one more question. How are the teams formed? So we ask that the teams are comprised of property manager, development representative, a service provider representative, and then a person with lived experience, ideally from the focus population. You can form these teams in multiple ways. If you have partnerships that currently work, but you want to form something a little bit more solid, we can work with you all to navigate the agreement process and establish those memorandums of understanding. We can also, we do have a section in the application for you to identify your partnership status. And so there is an area to say, maybe you don't have partners identified, but you're open to working with new folks. And, if we can help, and if we know of partners in the area who may be interested, we're certainly happy to link you all to those folks. But ultimately the partnership should be developed with folks who are share the same values as you and have the same goals and are hoping to serve the same focus population. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Charles.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. And I guess I just used your question to answer a question that we usually get anyway. So thanks for that opportunity. And yeah, I know summer vacations, and I think we mentioned joy. We understand the importance of rest very much. So if you have questions and concerns, I think, about participation in the schedule, you can ask us even before you submit an application too. Don't you think, Liam? We can kind of give you feedback on whether, like, I'd say if you're going to be gone for these critical sessions, we could try and help you and figure out a way to participate even with those absences, or just kind of inform you on what you would miss that would make it, how it would change the experience of the Institute. That's what I would say. But we're not a government funder, so we take questions all through. There's no blackout here, guys. There's no blackout period. So if you have any questions during the application phase, absolutely let us know.
And then Lou, to jump in and answer your question. So the Supportive Housing Institute is a CSH initiative. We do it throughout the nation. I think we've done we've done over 50 in, I think, 19 different states at this point was the last number I've heard. This institute is being funded very graciously by Virginia Housing, and because of their funding, it is free to all participants. There are, other institutes that you have to pay to be a part of, but Virginia Housing, is really important to Virginia Housing that this was offered for free. The way that they interlock in this way, and the way that it's important is really, we are collaborating with them frequently and often. So we are definitely a vehicle for sharing information out. They will also be present at several of the in-person sessions, and as well as kept abreast of the projects throughout. And so the goal is that once you all are in the Institute, you have high visibility with these funders and with these different folks. You're also hearing from them what they're prioritizing, what their different funding availabilities look like. And so through that, we hope that you can use the information that you are given and the opportunities to ask questions to inform how you see your project moving forward.
And I would like to say, so this is our third year doing an institute in Virginia. The first 2 years, and like, you know, we have places like Indiana, I think Connecticut is the first institute that ever happened over 20 years ago. In Indiana, we do an institute every year connected to the tax credit program. Been doing it for, I think, 14 or 15 years there. So this is our third year in Virginia. The first 2 years were funded by the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services through the federal ARPA and recovery program funds. So want to, you know, really highlight them as kind of the impetus to getting the institute and a proof point in Virginia off the ground. And I'm grateful that, you know, regardless of where the funding is coming from to support the Institute, those three partners, Virginia Housing, DBHDS, and DHCD, are all very committed and have to the Institute and to developing quality supportive housing in the state. So it is a key policy priority. It's the driver for the priority populations, their policy priorities. We want to align with those because that's where the resources are aligned. So their funding is aligned with the institute priority populations we're looking for. So I just wanted to add that, and I'll quickly answer Liam. There is no National Supportive Housing Institute. The reason for that is that the systems and delivery systems really vary, mostly by state, but also local jurisdictions as well. Our information and our institute is tailored to the communities we're working in, the funders and funding sources that exist there, and the policies and policy priorities that they have. And I'm going to answer it again, an educational group. Please, I really encourage you to go check out our website, www.csh.org. We're a national nonprofit. Yes, we do education and training. We do technical assistance. We're a lender, so we finance projects that develop supportive housing. And we do policy work at the state and local national level. And Cynthia, question, I'm going to punt that to you, Liam, on the status of projects. And then I know you're going to get to that in-person meeting stuff too, right? Okay.
Yep, we'll get to the in-person. And then in terms of projects coming to fruition nationally, absolutely. In Virginia, our round of NOVA projects, we currently have 2 in the active development stages. One of them is having their foundation poured this week, so that's really exciting. The other 2 that were eligible for grants or who came in they are a little bit earlier. They're still in some of the site. One of them is in a site negotiation, and the other one has site control, but is waiting on some easement things. And so pretty advanced, and all of them are projected to move forward from the 2022 round. The 2023 round, most of them are slated to move forward by 2026. They're a little bit earlier because they're, you know, hot off the press. We had more projects come in the conceptual phase in the 2023 round of the Institute, which was pretty cool. But so far, we've had 2 of those projects have been or one of the projects has been successfully awarded LIHTC funding. The other one was slated to receive funding shortly, and then they are also poised for the DHCD affordable and special needs housing funding round coming up in the fall. So not in different areas, but all slated to move forward as far as we know so far. Was that helpful, Cynthia?
Yes, definitely. Impressive. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I got to give credit to the teams too. They definitely worked really hard to deliver very solid projects. So shout out to them as well. And then I see, what do we look for in terms of past performance when it comes to applicant consideration? So we want this institute to be accessible to new and emerging developers. We do have a priority focus for BIPOC-led development groups and services organization. We'll get to a little bit. We'll define those those definitions a little bit more in the application. But we got guidance from Virginia Housing and DHCD that they consider an emerging developer anyone who has less than 2 to 5 LIHTC projects. And so again, seeking LIHTC funding is not a requirement of joining the Institute. We do offer a section for you to describe your experience, but we welcome emerging folks as well. Okay, cool. Great, Lou, I'm so glad. Any other questions before we get a little bit more into the application and just what that might look like? Okay, we can move forward. All right, as promised, our in-person sessions. So the first in-person session is going to be July 8th through 10th. This is going to be at the Virginia Housing headquarters. Our second in-person sessions are the budget sessions, again, August 26th through 27th at Virginia Housing, the Innsbrook location. And the finale is going to be October 16th at the Richmond Downtown Marriott. So all of our in-person sessions are in Richmond. We wanted to make it, kind of central for everyone, and really, get to where a lot of our funders are located and a lot of the decision makers in the state are located. And so Richmond it is. So we're excited to see you all and hopefully see you all there. Next slide, please. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit more about the Institute and the structure and kind of the specifics of this Virginia Institute, let's get into the actual application. We can head to the next slide, please. So this year we're using a platform called Brilliant Assessments. And so what that will mean is you will all get a code. I'll explain that a little bit more thoroughly in a second, but you will all get a code to access the application. When you click on that link, it'll prompt you to provide some information such as your name, your organization, and your email. And then you'll come to a page that looks like this. It gives you an overview of the Institute, of our values and expectation. Again, it defines our priority populations and our definition of BIPOC-led organizations, as well as it talks a little bit more about our regional focus, which is, we're definitely, again, hoping to see a broad range of localities throughout this Institute, but we also want to recognize that barriers and disproportionality is definitely higher in rural regions and regions that have experienced high levels of systemic targeting and redlining, including rural regions that have experienced redlining, and also regions that have experienced high levels of job development loss. And so really hoping that we can support folks in across the state throughout this Institute. Next slide, please. So once you complete the overview and read through everything and have a little bit better understanding, I apologize, that's not a great screenshot, but I want to be really transparent about the scoring. And so the way that we're going to evaluate your application is we're going to talk about site identification status. So we're going to assess your project readiness and accessibility. That's going to be 20 points of the application. That includes your site identification status, the accessibility of your location, and also the accessibility of your physical unit, your partnership plans and agreements. We'll then get into the project concept, so how it's gonna promote equity in your region, how it's gonna best support the focus population. Those will both be 10 points. And then we'll get into the equity and inclusion. So I do see, there we go. Thank you, Jill, for the definition there. So again, includes a team or organization that is Black, Indigenous, or person of color led. We also want to see that it includes a person with a lived experience of homelessness. We do ask that you provide your outreach and payment or any agreements that you've structured at the time of application. If you don't have those, you have the option to let me know what's going on, and we can, you know, work to help you develop those later on. And then again, we want to help promote projects that otherwise have higher barriers to accessing funds, or maybe development is a little bit harder in that area. We want to make sure that we are uplifting those regions and help get those regions to the forefront as well. So a total possible of 75 points for this application. We do ask that you submit a couple other things, including a signed letter from all of the participants who are going to be in the Institute. Again, you do have the option to provide a status update if you don't have your partners identified. We ask that you submit a copy of good standing or a certificate of existence registration. And then we ask that you submit any MOUs and partnership agreements. So a couple of extra documents, you will be able to upload them directly into the application. So no need to worry about emailing us or sending over multiple documents. You'll just upload them directly into the app. And then I'm going to pause. Okay. Yes, we will send this to everyone who attended the webinar. Next slide, please. So here is what, getting into your part of the application is going to look like. This first section is basic information. It's not a weighted section. We're just looking to get more details on your team, your structure, your project concept. It'll ask about your total units, your project location, the number, your unit mix, any key partners you have. This is also the section where we'll ask you to identify who your team leader is going to be. So make sure you're thinking about that as you're submitting the application. Again, the team leader is a vital role. They kind of are the champion for the team and make sure that everyone receives and is given communication. So it's an important role, or an important section, even though it's not weighted. And so all questions are required. Next slide, please. The project readiness and accessibility. This is the first weighted section. You will see that, there are several different ways to answer the questions here. What I will say is that for every question that is weighted, so these where you have multiple choices or these where you have sliding scales, I did want to provide an opportunity to provide additional information that we may need to consider. And so while the assessment itself will generate preliminary score, we as the planning committee will go back and use the information you provide under your multiple choice or sliding scale to further deliberate on your project. And so again, five teams this year. So I do anticipate this being a pretty competitive process. And so want to stress that we don't expect you to write a lot of information, but this would be a great place to put any key information that we maybe would otherwise not know, because we're not familiar with every region and the barriers and the things going on in each region. So definitely encourage you all to put any pertinent information in the text boxes. They are not weighted, and nothing you put in the text box is going to count against your weighting in the overall assessment. Next slide, please. So once you all finish the assessment, you'll have two more sections that look very similar to that section we just went to. And once you all finish the assessment, it'll give you this, again, preliminary rating. It'll let you know kind of where you stand in each section. Again, we as the planning committee will be using your supplemental information and your credentials to really verify this information and also hold any additional considerations. But this, you will receive at least some sort of feedback on how well you did out of the 75 total points. Next slide, please. So what's going to happen next? Everyone who attended the webinar today will receive an email link to the application, hopefully within 24 hours of this call. I will say that we put you into the system, but that the system blasts emails out on its own. So once we put your information into the system, we're kind of at the mercy of the platform for when you can receive those emails. I also highly encourage folks to check their spam or any quarantine folders that they have, because as this is an auto-generated system, sometimes those things can get lost. But once you receive that link, you will be able to access the application. It is live. It is going to be live until May 17th. And so a little under a month to complete the application. You're going to submit it right in that Brilliant Assessments portal. Again, all of the documentation that we're going to need in addition to the application, you can just put it right in that portal as well. And then again, just want to emphasize, we do anticipate this being a competitive selection process. So while we don't expect that you have it all figured out right away, we do ask that you are intentional and thoughtful and engaging key partners in your application and project process. And I think that's the last slide we have. Next slide, please. Yeah, okay. So at this time, I just want to pause. I know we've kind of been answering questions as we go, but if folks have burning questions or things they want to know, also want to encourage folks, this is the direct email for our Supportive Housing Institute. Everyone on the Mid-Atlantic team has access to this email. We monitor it regularly. So if you do have questions that come up later, or another partner who might be interested that wasn't able to make it today, definitely encourage you to reach out to that email and let us know. We will be sharing the slides and the recording after the webinar. It will also be pushed out in the newsletter for the Virginia Housing Alliance, so folks can view it that way. And then again, you will receive an auto-generated link from our Brilliant Assessments platform, giving you access to the application. Any questions? All right, well, hearing no questions, I'm going to say thank you all so much for your time today. We hope you found this webinar useful. I really hope to see you all come in for the application. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out to us at shi.va@csh.org, and we'll hang out for a little bit just in case folks need anything. Thank you so much for your time.